Pompey Sound. Updates, the latest from Fratton Park, on the hour, every hour. Fueled by Piglet's Pantry. Click pigletspantry.co.uk to get your fill.
John Messinho on losing Kazyengi to Australia's World Cup games. There's nothing you can do about those sorts of things, really. And we can't exactly sit here and say he's safer here with us with some of the injuries we've had this year. It was frustrating losing Kaz when he was with Australia. He did it in a game, so it's one of those where there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. We'd probably prefer to have Kaz in the building for this international break. But, at the same time, I never want to stop anyone from fulfilling their international ambitions. We wouldn't stop it. If players are called up, they are called up. Our policy anyway at the football club is that we want players to go and play international football. As I'm sure you can imagine, we have a very, very good relationship with the Australian FA. There have been a couple of times over the past few years, and I can't remember the specifics, where we've had conversations with the head coach and sports science department about where we think the level of a player's fitness is and whether they think they might be better off staying here. In fairness, Australia have always worked with us on that, and we would never want to abuse that relationship.
During his regular unpack, this time on the Leeds game, Mick Robertson paid tribute to the Fratton crowd the way they gave the players an ovation at the end of the game, and then he suddenly stopped and remembered something.
So many people, most of the crowd, the majority of the crowds staying behind to applaud the team off. Incidentally, they also applauded the team off at half-time, and they applauded them on at the end of half-time. I mean, this is extraordinary. This crowd, a moment to think about the crowd, they're growing with the team, I would suggest to you. I mean, they are believing their own publicity, this Fratton Park crowd.
John Messinho has provided an injury update on Adil Al-Shishe ahead of Wednesday night's visit of Plymouth Argyle to Fratton Park. The Sunderland loanee was substituted on 54 minutes during the 1-0 win against Leeds United and replaced by Terry Devlin. The attacking midfielder picked up a foot injury in the early stages of the second half and was spotted with an ice pack around his ankle as he took his place on the bench for the remainder of the match. It automatically raised concerns, with the Frenchman starting the Blues past 3 games in the number 10 role behind central striker Colby Bishop in the absence of top scorer Callum Lang, who is out for the rest of the season with a hamstring injury. Pompey will reassess Al-Shishe on Tuesday before making a final call on his availability for the game against the Pilgrims.
Yeah, so what's going on? All this talk about needing a number 10. Callum Lang played wide as often as he played right behind Colby Bishop in the very centre of the midfield three. Al-Shishe can go wide down either side. We've got Gordon as well, who can play right-sided attacking midfield and can presumably play in this so-called number 10 role. There's a fluidity about those three. We even sometimes see Murphy cropping up on the right just to try out his luck on that fullback. So let's assume that there is a fluidity about Pompey's midfield three, and none of them are the designated number 10. It's a mythical status, the number 10 thing. I don't think it was around in our country until Paul Gascoigne came along and played wherever he wanted because he was that good. And they kind of figured out that he spent most of his time in the middle, just off the front line. And so they said, OK, before Gascoigne, I'm going back a bit, there was a player called Beardsley who used to play in, and it was a new role then, they called it in the hole. And this was the hole between your central forwards and your defensive midfield players. And it's got this kind of revered status. Rooney was regarded as one of the all-time great English number 10s. But if we're playing the modern way, the John Messinho way, the way he's quiet about, which is a fluidity, whereby players can pretty much play in any position, and fans are starting to wake up to this, then we don't need a designated number 10. We've got 3 designated number 10s, 3 people who can play wide in attacking midfield on either side. That's the way to go. I notice now that an awful lot of people are saying about Terry Devlin, and this is meant to be an enormous compliment, which it is. If it was true, it's not. He could play anywhere except in goal. And we do tend to expect him to be able to pop up wherever he's needed. Using his intelligence, he stands on the right bit of grass or runs onto or away from the right bit of grass. That's all the tactical knowledge you really need, apart from being able to work out the best way to thread your way through the opposition and, of course, cover the opposition's attacking forwards. So I think we're developing a squad of players that can play in lots of different positions according to the moment of the game. Now, this is really proper modern stuff. This is ahead of the rest. But do we have any reason to doubt that John Messino is somebody who is already ahead of the rest and is heading towards being considerably further ahead of the rest than anybody at the moment? I think not. Power to him. This is Pompey Sound.